back to the couch.
Yeah.
Our second instalment of Conscious Conversations. I'm Beck.
And I'm Jeannie. And yeah, thanks for all your wonderful feedback from our last conversation. It was really fun and we've both been looking forward to coming back together, and we have to laugh because we've got no idea what we're going to talk about, which is the essence of why we're here today.
That's true. We've just uploaded about our kids and husbands and all the rest, so none of that's going to get filmed.
No, we're ready to just hang out, and and I think maybe it is that not knowing.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's so interesting, when we talk about sitting in the not knowing, because I know that for myself, with all the things that are going on in my life at the moment and all the projects that I'm involved with, all the people that I'm involved with, I think that if I really knew what I was doing all the time, I would probably short circuit.
Mm-hmm.
For me, being in the not knowing is probably the only thing that's really gotten me through it. Such a busy period.
Yeah.
Such a busy period.
Yeah.
And I think waking up every day and saying, well, there's certain things that I need to be able to get done with the day, but I don't actually know where it is that my attention's going to go. I don't know what consciousness is going to want to be engaged with. Seems to speed things up for me.
Yeah.
Because if I look, and I was talking to Dan about this earlier today, about how far I've come as a human, because it wasn't that long ago where I would have a look in my daily diary and I would see two or three things there, and I would completely freak out. How am I going to get that done? And now I wake up in the morning and I think, well, I know there's these things that need to get done, but the day is pretty much not going to go the way that I intend it to, because it never does.
Yes.
And somehow things seem to happen, and I seem to get more things done in the day than I used to. Even though I'm not going through and systematically saying, have I done that, have I done that, have I done that? By the time I get to the end of the day, I realise I've ticked all the list off and done more than that. So we could say that there's something interesting going on with time at the moment, but I think it's also when you sit in the not knowing, you start to be able to move beyond the constraints of time.
Yeah, and I think it's that perspective of when we have to know, we're actually not in the moment. And so it's as soon as we want to know something, we're wanting to be in future projection, expectation. And so for me personally, I think it's great how you say, you reflect back on your behaviours of now compared to what it was in the past. And I think that's a really important thing that we have as a tool to see, because ultimately all this self-inquiry, if it doesn't actually change the way we engage in our life, it just becomes more busy work and something more to feel like we're not doing right, we're not getting it. And I think sitting...
You mean like, how do I fit my spirituality into the day?
Yeah.
I've got so much happening.
Yeah, and it's like...
I haven't got time to meditate.
Yeah, and it's coming back to that, okay, what does it really mean to not have to know? And I used to always... I love Eckhart Tolle and the power of now, and go, yeah, and everyone says it's about the moment. But until we really start engaging what it means to not have to know, and it doesn't mean that you can't have fun, for me personally, thinking about things that are going to happen. But for me, it's like sometimes I know things, but it's letting go of the reason beyond that knowing. So for instance, I know I have to ring that person, and then the mind wants to come in and go, oh, it's because we're going to talk about this or we're going to do this. But when I can just take the action of I'm going to ring that person and I'm not going to have an expectation of what's going to happen from there, then ultimately the jewel in that moment is revealed to me. And I know, a girlfriend and I explored that many years ago on our trip to Uluru. And when I started playing with this idea of, what if I had no goals and visions? What if my goal was actually being present to the moment and just being in love with myself?
So what you're talking about then is getting through, as I understand it, getting through your day and being willing to engage with things, but not having a clear purpose or intent behind the engagement.
Yeah.
Because when you start engaging with things without intent, you're engaging less from your ego, because the ego always likes to have control over what's happening and the anticipated outcome. And you're actually engaging more from that deep level of consciousness, because consciousness doesn't really have any intent for you going and making a phone call other than an engagement with itself.
Yeah.
To see what can permeate from that stuff.
Absolutely. And that is the prompt, and that is the intuition. And many years ago I was playing with what does intuition, and then becomes a synchronicity that often will engage with that intuition. And then I sort of created this little definition for myself about synchronicity, that it was, inspired intuition, showing you the next step forward into purposeful action. And so from that place, I had a knowing that I needed to go to Uluru. Every cell in my body said I need to go to Uluru. I didn't know when, and I didn't know why. And so I thought, what if I just stay in that knowing? And then one day, another girlfriend said, I'd really love to go. And all of a sudden it started. And for 4 days, we ended up going to Uluru. But we had, let's play with this. Let's go to Uluru and not know why. And so literally, we turned up at the airport and we didn't know where we were staying. We were on a budget. We were no idea what we were going to do there, other than we had to. So we literally rocked up and looked around the airport at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, went, well, we're here. And then all of a sudden felt excited about a backpackers that had a sign up. Oh, go over there. And for the next 4 days, from staying to that place, people would ask us questions. Oh, so how are you going to get around? Don't know. And that person would then go, oh, well, I can organise a car for you. Really? Okay.
So because you're engaging from that place of deep consciousness rather than engaging from the ego with the situation or engaging with that anticipation, it's so much easier to recognise consciousnness greeting you.
Absolutely.
And that's when you get that really amazing experience of synergy.
It's like you go into another place. And my experience was looking back at it afterwards. It was like people came to us with what we needed before we even knew we needed it. And it was so cool. And, it's an opportunity. And I might even speak to Michelle and see if she's happy, because we actually did record a conversation about that trip and what transpired. And we might actually put it up.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah. And it is so exciting, but it's really scary. And I think it's a part of the process of trusting yourself and trusting life that enables you to do that. And it's not something that you can do if you're not ready to do it. And I think on our spiritual journeys, we can often go, well, how can that person do it? And I can't. And then we want to make ourselves feel guilty that we're not able to do it. And so I don't want to be creating a space where people are going to go, well, I can't do it, so I can't do it. It's like, we can when we can.
Yeah.
And until then, we have to love the part of us that would like to do it, but isn't ready to step into that process, because there's opportunities still exactly where you are.
That's
and
true.
There's blessings exactly where you are. And it's coming back to, I am here because I'm here. And I will love this moment for whatever it's giving me. And even though it's uncomfortable and I'm in struggle, etc., that when I can just look in from a different perspective with the opportunity that maybe, because, it's all a maybe there is an opportunity and a gift here that I'm ready to experience.
And yet for me, that's like you say, the process of that, and it may be difficult to move into a process of that. I might sit a little bit differently with that, because I don't actually see that as a process. Just from my perspective, the way I'd see that is you just drop your belief about something and then you're sitting in that place.
Yeah.
And to me, that's not really a process.
No.
That's a switch.
Yes.
That's am I willing to give up what I believe about this? Because when you're willing to give up what you believe about it and you sit in the not knowing, you hit that deep current of synergy. And quite often I'll use the analogy of the ocean for this to kind of talk about this synergy, because as humans with the ego likes to sit up on the top layer of the ocean. It likes to sit up in the waves, and it gets very, very choppy up there, and it gets noisy, and there's a lot of drama, and you really have to try and keep yourself afloat up there for the next wave crashing along. So there's a lot of excitement happening up on the surface of the water. There's a lot of action. People love it. But when you actually allow yourself to drop and stop the struggle, and you actually drop beneath the ocean, at first the ego wants to get back up the top again because it wants to keep you afloat and keep you in that drama because you think that's where you need to be to survive. And then eventually, if you allow yourself to sink, you'll actually hit the current. Now the current is what you're talking about with synergy. It just moves you so quickly.
Yes.
Everything lines up and you can go miles and miles and miles in that deep sea current without even having to make any effort at all because everything aligns. Yeah. You're aligning to the consciousness of the water which is moving you. Yeah. You're not actually struggling and moving against the choppiness at the top of it.
Yeah. Beautiful analogy. And my one of the analogies when I was really starting to embrace this concept was like being on a travelator. And you know the travelators that you get at the airports?
Yeah.
Where they just, and it's like you're on it, you're not moving, but you are. And all of a sudden, there's a destination that excites you and you get off and you engage with that and then you get back on the travelator. And so when I first decided to let go of using goals and visions, as in future goals and visions other than the feeling state of now, it felt really scary because I was like, oh my God, does that mean my life will be in the same place in another year? It was quite a scary place to sit. And I thought, you know what, I just want to, I was guided to do that. And then I was showing this travelator and I was like, yeah, you don't feel like you're moving, but you are moving. And since really engaging with that process, I can say my life has been so magical and the opportunities that come were beyond what I could ever possibly think for myself.
So because you're standing still on the travelator, you think that nothing is happening.
Yes.
Because humans are always so used to the work.
Yes.
And making effort and going step by step by step. If you don't take the step, nothing happens.
Yes.
Isn't that what we're always told?
Yes.
Rather than if you actually sink into consciousness and drop what you believe that you have to do, that current's going to pick you up just like the travelator.
Absolutely.
And then when you actually figure out that you can walk on the travelator as well, how fast do you go?
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's like something will excite you. Some person will connect with you. Some opportunity will arrive and you cannot not take that step. And it was really interesting because I used to have a story about myself that I was a procrastinator. And because, oh, why haven't I done that? Why am I doing it? And I started to, as I became more the observer of these behaviours, one day I actually had the realisation that I wasn't a procrastinator. I was just really good at engaging with divine time. That my soul's timing for something wasn't in line with what my human thought it should be. And so when I dropped the story that I was a procrastinator, I could observe that when the divine time came, I jumped and I acted and nothing was going to stop me. And it happened with grace and ease. And it was a really, really amazing change of perspective.
Because, you know, the whole construct of humanity is based on consistent output and consistent delivery of outcomes and consistency in your work. I mean, that's what we teach kids at school.
Yeah.
You know, don't come 5 days a week and just produce a whole heap on Tuesday. You've got to be consistent. And this is just productivity on the planet.
Yeah.
But it's not a natural state of affairs.
No. Imagine if we encourage kids to have a passion diary. Always had. If anybody's out there that wants to pick up this idea and create it, go with it. Because you know what? Even year one, there was a period that there was maths, English, and passion diary. And passion diary was where you sat as a kid and you wrote about how much you love Lego or how much you love horses. And then the next year, that might have transgressed to Meccano or to actually riding horses. And so we then have like this map of our passion from our childhood. And if we continually engage with that and are encouraged to nurture it, but not with the intent that the passion for horses is always going to be exactly the same. That acknowledging that as our truth changes, also our passions will change, but it's almost like they become a map for our soul.
So you could really take the word passion out and you could put what is consciousness wanting to engage with. And then that becomes a practice of paying attention to what your consciousness is wanting to engage with. Because wherever that passion is where the engagement is.
Yeah. And it's the flavour.
We fill our lives with things that we think we have to do rather than the things we really want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And it becomes our way of projecting our personal, unique signature of consciousness onto the planet. And then we can own it. But we do start with that process of, you know, when we're kids, we want to have the same flavour as someone next to us because we don't believe our flavour is strong enough or good enough. And if we can teach our kids that their very personal flavour is to be loved and nurtured rather than compared and competed with, then, hey, you know, let's start loving ourselves from the beginning rather than our journey where one day we wake up and go, actually, I've got to start loving myself. And that's when I start seeing the world change.
Because that's also what, when you start to do that, that's what gives you permission to not just focus on productivity, but to say, what is it that I want to be engaging with today? Yeah. So even though I'm supposed to be editing a book all this morning, I'm sitting here engaging with you on the couch because it's far more what I'm wanting to engage with this morning.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us for our conversation today. Feel free to comment, share, or maybe someone would like to come and join us on the couch. That would be wonderful too.
Yeah, yeah. There's plenty of room. Or start your own conversations. You know, this is a place where we'd love to inspire people to just get together with no intent, no knowing, other than hanging out and being together in a place of joy.
Beautiful. See you next time.
Bye.